Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams catching some heat from the Jets beat. Olu Fashanu injured, extent not yet known, and why money might not be the biggest thing the Jets can do to keep Garrett Wilson happy. I'm Glenn Naughton with Jet Nation Radio and JetNation.com. Be sure to log into JetNation.com where you can register and become a part of what is the most active Jets message board on the web. All saw it yesterday. Jets dropped another game, another decision to the Rams this time. 19-9 at home. A great start. Best drive of the year, really. At least best opening drive of the year for the Jets as Aaron Rodgers marches the Jets 99 yards down the field. Nice combination of run pass. Got a few different guys involved catching the ball. Made some big throws on third down. Beautiful fake on play action on the final play of the drive, which was a touchdown pass to Davante Adams in the back of the end zone, which gave him 499 for his career, one short of 500. And that's when things got interesting. It did seem for the rest of the day, and Rodgers took some heat for this from the post-game show over at SNY. Bart Scott and Willie Colon, Connor Rodgers, gave the Jets some heat for this. In fact, the comments I heard, I believe, were Willie Colon. I believe Connor and Bart were on the same page with this. Just saw a little snippet, but I mean, it's a thought I had during the game. It's one of the reasons I was going to highlight it, and I was glad that someone else did on the post game. This became a game that was about getting Aaron Rodgers his 500th touchdown pass, and that pass being to Davante Adams. It seemed that it was more important than getting the win, which I understand the win is meaningless, and a lot of fans don't want the win. I get all that. But you've still got to play the game on the field amongst your teammates as if you're trying to win the football game. And doing what's best. I mean, yes, you are still trying to win the football game if you're throwing the ball to Davante Adams. But he can't be the primary focus of the offense in the red zone because you're determined to get him that one ball. Because it's another game for Garrett Wilson, not getting enough targets. And listen, I know Garrett Wilson is like 5th or 6th in the NFL in targets this year. He's not short of targets. But it felt like he was yesterday. A lot of short stuff, no deep shots down the field. Didn't really, you're not treating him like the young rising number one receiver that he is. And he's not happy about it. And I can't say I blame him. And we're going to talk again. We've spoken in recent weeks a lot about the possibility of a Garrett Wilson trade. Is he going to want to shoot his way out of town? I can't believe how many fans are just like, it can't happen. No, just we've talked about this. You can have his rights all you want. All right, if I'm not mistaken, and I could be wrong on this. I should have looked this up before I went live because it was an example I thought of. I used the example the other day of Jamal Adams. Right? Everybody, he's not going anywhere. He's a young stud player. Jets have control for a few more years. All he had to do was act up, do a couple interviews where he's like, I'm not so sure about this team. And boom, he was gone. I can't recall if he was on his rookie deal, but I do recall Odell Beckham not being thrilled with the Giants, signing a monster contract and demanding a trade that offseason and getting it. I could be wrong, but I feel like that was the first time we saw a team say, we're willing to eat tens of millions in dead cap 1 year after signing a guy. That didn't used to be a thing, and I feel like Odell was the first. I could be wrong. But Garrett Wilson is a guy who, and this is the point I've made, I feel like fans get trapped in this fan bubble where they're just like, well, I like that guy, don't want him to go, just pay him, and that's the end of it. That it's not that simple. I've been saying for over a year after watching Garrett Wilson in these post games, like that dude is going to want. Now, I didn't think it was going to be a problem because I thought he was going to have 1,700 yards this year with Aaron Rodgers and, hit his full potential. And I thought they were going to win, and that would have fixed it all. But if you look at Garrett Wilson, the issue here is not money. And it's not going to be money. It's going to be, are we going to win? Garrett Wilson isn't miserable after every single loss. And this is the point I've made. I've never seen a player more upset after every single loss than Garrett Wilson. And this has been going on for a couple of years now. The guy wants to win. Oh, the Jets can just pay him. No matter where he goes, they're going to pay him. Getting paid is not a concern. That's going to happen. Is Garrett Wilson going to win? Because I think he wants that a lot more than most guys do. And if you can't sell him on a vision, which they did that twice and they're 0 for 2, then he's going to want out. And no, the Jets don't have to trade him. But as I discussed the other day, do you create a toxic atmosphere in the locker room? GM Island Empire says, sorry, Glenn, Garrett's got one foot out the door. Absolutely. He'll be a Redskin or a Texan. Look, there's a few different teams. If I'm the Chiefs, if I'm the Ravens, if I'm a team, whoever's going to pursue Sam Darnold, like you want to add a dynamic duo, wouldn't that be fantastic to watch? Maybe a team like Tennessee. Maybe they say, all right, we'll go out and sign Darnold and we'll trade for Garrett Wilson. Now we've got a franchise quarterback and a number one receiver for the next 5+ years. So I think everyone who's laughing this off, I think everyone who's laughing at the possibility of a Garrett Wilson trade or insisting it's nothing to worry about because all the Jets have to do is pay him, I think they're underestimating how much winning means to this guy and how far this team is from being one you can look at and say, this team's they're going to win some football games. You don't know who your head coach is. You don't know who your GM is. If you're bringing a guy on the defensive side of the ball who wants to, ground and pound or run a style of offense that isn't going to maximize Garrett Wilson's ability, and throw on top of that, are they going to win it? Who the hell knows? They didn't win this year with Aaron Rodgers. And as I've talked, he might be the best option for next year. You're going to tell Garrett Wilson, hey, you know that guy we couldn't win anything with last year? And you know how much winning means to you? You've got nothing to worry about. We're bringing that guy back. Okay? I guess you can try that. I'm not sure how it's going to work out. But Garrett Wilson, I think, as I said, people are underestimating the chances of him leaving. They assume he's a Jet. I like him. Just pay him, and that's the end of it. No. What? Watch the man in one single post-game interview after a loss. And tell me that's not a guy who is being eaten alive inside because this team sucks. Because he's only ever won football games before getting here. And he doesn't like not winning football games. And he probably feels like next year he's not going to win a lot of football games. So, I say it all. We all universally pretty much agree on this, right? It's about the money. Players just want money. Just pay them and they'll stay. And maybe that will happen and I'll be wrong and I'll say it. But I think this is different. I think Garrett Wilson, this is not like this just started. Oh, it looks like Garrett's unhappy about losing. Garrett's been unhappy about losing from the day he got here. And every interview he does, he looks like he just wants to walk out of the building and not come back. So that may happen this offseason. I can't get on board with people who don't see it. They're just like, so what? You got control. Pay him. We're good. He's not going anywhere. Okay, let's wait and see. Let's see. Says Aaron's coming back unless they go after Cousins. They're not going after Cousins. 1 touchdown, 9 interceptions this year over the past half of the year, which is what I think will happen if they go after Cousins. Garrett will stay. You think Garrett Wilson will stay to play with Kirk Cousins, who just got benched because he threw 1 touchdown in 6 weeks? I would disagree. I don't think Kirk Cousins in his current state is what you would call. Hey, how about Derek Carr? I say that half joking. If that dude gets released and you've got no other option, I don't even want Carr. Like, I wanted Carr before, but now we're a couple years moved on from that. But that guy, I've watched a couple of Saints games this year. That dude airs it out. He loves throwing the ball down the field. You pair him with someone like Wilson. But yeah, let's not even go down that road. That was like laughing out loud, joking. But yeah, I don't want Carr. I don't know who I want, to be honest. I want Cam Ward, but I think he's going to be a Raider or a Giant. Um, Darnold ain't coming back here. Don't want Carr if he gets let go. Rodgers, look, if he's willing to take 10 million a year, maybe you bring him back, but I don't know. We'll see about that. He says he's willing to take a pay cut. I don't know if that's the case. O says yes, there's not anything else out there. Yeah, but just because there's not anything else out there doesn't mean you bring in a guy who is completely done. Why not bring in any undrafted rookie free agent and start that guy? Because that's about where Cousins is right now. Yeah, and this is the point I'm making, right? This is what I've talked about a lot this last couple weeks. I don't want Carr or Cousins, but what other options are there? Aaron Rodgers, like it or not. I think, especially, I think yesterday was selfish on his part to make Davante Adams his lone target in the red zone, or his primary target, his very obviously his primary target. They were talking about on the broadcast, this would be so cool. These guys, they've done so many things together, so many years. Like, they were foreshadowing for what they expected to be the pass to Davante, because that's what Rodgers was hyper focused on. So maybe once he gets that touchdown 500 behind him and the game's mattering, and that could be part of it. That could be Aaron Rodgers saying, I want 500. This game doesn't matter. Outcome, whatever. Maybe that's it. And I would imagine if that was an important game yesterday, he's looking at every receiver. He's playing a more complete game than me and Davante are going to go out and play catch today in the red zone. I don't think that would have happened. But again, when we say what else is out there, Aaron Rodgers will be out there. And if he's willing to take a big enough pay cut, which again, he said he will take one, then you don't bring in Cousins. It's just, yeah. They need to clean house again. Well, again, that depends on what you mean by clean house. I made the point when Joe Douglas was fired, and I saw Connor Hughes make the same point yesterday. This offensive line is 4/5 of the way there with good linemen. You don't generally take over as a GM of a team with a top 10 pick and have 4 of your 5 linemen set to go. And maybe you draft a guy and you bring Morgan Moses back. So you've got 5 guys to work with. That's one thing that makes this rebuild. And do not for 1 second mistake me for being optimistic, because I am convinced they will blow this. But I'm just trying to be objective before they blow it. You don't see a lot of rebuilds where the GM comes in and the offensive line is ready to go. Normally, that's one of your biggest problems. The last couple regime changes the Jets had, the last couple regime changes this team had, that was the issue. You walked in the door, you got nothing at offensive line. This next GM is going to walk in, he's going to have a left tackle, he's going to have a left guard, he's going to have a center, a right guard, and possibly a right tackle in Moses, and I would imagine somebody behind him to mentor, to bring along. So that's huge. That's huge, because now if you do take a quarterback, you're not having the issue you had with Sam Darnold and with Zach Wilson and with Geno Smith, that you're bringing in these quarterbacks. Although Geno's line wasn't that bad, going off memory. I could be wrong. It's a long time ago. But really, the Zach line and the Darnold lines were abominations. So you draft a young quarterback, you want to develop them, and now you got to spend years trying to build a wall before they bolt, or you trade them because they've got PTSD lining up under center. So that this next GM won't have that issue. So you say tear it down. I'm not tearing it down. I'm keeping what's worth keeping, and I'm tearing down the rest, which there's a fair bit to get rid of. Front office wise, maybe you do that to reset the culture in the building. Beloved Peace says he's fine with keeping Rodgers or getting rid of him. And Beloved Peace, that's exactly where I am. That's exactly where I am. If they bring him back, I'm not going to kill them for it, because A, they're going to do it at a lower rate, and B, what else are you going to do? And if you let him go, fine. You're probably not going to win with him anyway. So go ahead and move on. I'm 100%. I'm right there with you. There's a part of me that would like to see him hang around and sort of stick it to the haters because, and again, Rodgers has fallen well short of expectations this year. But these lunatics in the media who are still attacking him because of his vaccine status, they're insane. Like, and these insane people going after Rodgers. I would like to see him be able to stick it to them, but I don't know that he'll get that opportunity. Rich says, with this roster, are we a good coach away from making the playoffs? Listen, how many games have we seen this year where it's like one-score games with bad decisions? A lot. That's why, you bring in, that to me, that's the one, well, not the biggest appeal in Vrabel is that you've seen him coach and win NFL football games with, a good, not great quarterback in Ryan Tannehill. It's hard for me to sit here and say I want a defensive guy. But again, I'm using Vrabel as the example because he's done it. He's won some games and he's been to some playoff games and won some playoff games. So I wouldn't mind seeing him come in. But beyond head coach, I mean, you're going to add some pieces, Rich, but there's not. Again, assuming Rodgers comes back, your O-line is in place. You've got Rodgers. You've got your running back stable is set. Your O-line is almost set. Your number 1 and 2 receivers are set if you convince Garrett to stay. If you don't, then receiver becomes a top priority in the draft. I take Tedero and McMillan in the first round if he's there. If I'm the Jets, perhaps a Luther Burden, somebody like that. Again, that's if you can't get Garrett to stay. Defensively, I'm hate sauce all you want. I'm predicting a big bounce back year for him next year. You'll have the corners competing. You'll have Eccles, Stiggers, JBC. I imagine they'll sign one, draft one. They'll try to find a CB2. That'll be a concern. Safety's a concern. So there are some worries. You'll need some more depth at edge. You'll need some better players on the interior. I think defense is going to be your focal, the side of the ball you're going to focus on this offseason because you do need more DTs. You do need more safeties. You do need some insurance at corner. Once you get that, though, offensively, again, O-line, you need tight ends. Draft two tight ends, New York Jets. 2 at least. Draft 2, sign one. I don't know if the Conklin's going to hang around. I like the guy. 2, you need 2 tight ends, Jets. Minimum, maybe 3. But outside of tight end, and right tackle, where, again, you could bring Moses back, you're fine. You're fine. There's a few spots that you need. So fill those few key spots and add a coach who's won some games. And who knows? Who knows? But, and again, do not. I don't want, and I feel like I have to do a disclaimer. Anything I say something that sounds optimistic about this, I am not optimistic about this team. They will be forever bad. But I have to be objective when I discuss them because I'm not just going to come on here and rant about how much they're going to suck. I know they're going to suck. But until we see it, we have to give them time to prove it, which they will, because they always do. You know what else they do? They draft young, talented offensive linemen who can't stay healthy. Just some terrible luck for Olu Fashanu yesterday. He gets hurt. He was the guy. Remember, we got to draft Olu because you can't count on Tyron Smith to stay healthy. Now, Tyron Smith was bad, which nobody predicted, so don't come at me with that. That was a stupid signing. Everyone knew he was going to suck. No, everyone thought Tyron Smith was going to get hurt, and that's why you had to draft Olu. Tyron Smith lasted more starts than Olu did. Olu in his 6th, 7th start didn't, and I'm not knocking. It's not his fault, but Christ Almighty, I've talked about this before Olu got hurt. And talking about, Joe Douglas didn't address the offensive line. Mekhi Becton never got hurt in college. Got drafted by the Jets, hurt. Elijah Vera Tucker never got hurt in college. Drafted by the Jets, got hurt. Cam Clark, not the same accolades, but a guy that I loved coming out of college, set the school record for consecutive starts. Started like 30-some games in a row. Comes to the Jets, puts on the green and white, breaks his neck, never steps on the field in the NFL. There were people saying, not just me, this isn't me being biased. I'm not going to tell people to go back and watch film from a guy, from 4 or 5 years ago who's never going to play. But his film against Clemson was phenomenal. I was tweeting all over the place about Cam Clark before the draft. And when the Jets took him, Mel Kiper was like, this guy's a starting left guard next year. Not rookie year, but the following year. And that's kind of how I viewed him. I was like, mean streak, nasty in the run game. This guy could be a starter. He gets hurt. So first round accolades, no. Were there those who believed he could be a starter? Yes. And then you take Olu Fashanu, hurt. It's unbelievable. Now we don't, I slept late because, worked the night shift, watched the game from work. Well, the last quarter, I watched most of it. First 3.5 quarters before I went into work. Went into work, watched the last few minutes, wake up this morning, have it, and someone throw that out there if you will. If I haven't even checked the Twitter machine to see what's going on with Olu, if there's any update. Chris says I'm still trying to figure out how they lost that game yesterday. Well, that's a great question for Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams, who just wanted to try to play catch in the end zone and it wouldn't work. I think Davante and Alan Lazard with the drops, dude. Come on, man. I've tried to be as generous as possible with Lazard and say, look, yes, he's going to get some drops, but he's going to make some plays. The plays have gone away. He's not making any plays. I counted 3 drops yesterday. There may have been more. Highest drop rate in the NFL per Connor Hughes, I believe. But yeah, Chris is saying, how do you lose that game? I mean, they came out on fire. It looked like they had a kicker for a few weeks. Now it looks like they don't have a kicker again. So there's another position for this team to address. But how did they lose? I mean, Aaron Rodgers, like I said, comes out on fire, 99-yard drive, 28 of 42 on the day for 256 and a touchdown. Running game wasn't great, wasn't terrible. Brees had 14 for 52. And part of this, too, is, we don't know what the calls are and what Aaron is audibling out of. But you're in a game that's mostly a one-score game, and you're throwing the football 42 times and running it 17. Well, 20. You got Brees for 14 carries, Isaiah Davis for 3, Rodgers 1 scramble, and Braylon Allen 2. So you got 20 carries. You're more than 2-1 throwing to passing. Just throwing the hell out of the ball. Beloved piece, I'm not going to get into that right now. Olu was, in fact, the wrong pick, as proven by what happened. He when this season is over, he will have started fewer or finished fewer than 7 games, while the guy they should have picked is having the best season in NFL history at his position and will be... I'm not going to get into it. Love to know the percentage of injuries across the NFL. Let's see. Oh, great. Chris wants to hop on. I was actually going to say, do you want to jump on? Let's bring Chris on here. Let me do a quick invite. It's been a while since we've seen Chris because life gets busy and we sometimes can't make it work. But we're going to make it work now. This was impromptu. I'm about to head. Merry Christmas, everyone, by the way, to everybody out there for, we'll throw this in the group chat, see if Dylan happens to be around and able to hop on. Yeah, Merry Christmas. I'm about to head down to London to the in-laws for a couple days. There we go. I got to hop down there a couple days with the family, do the presents and all that, and then hop back up this way to work the day after Christmas. Speaking of Christmas, Chris, we missed you. How we doing?
Glenn, I would be doing a lot better if we could talk about a Jets victory yesterday. I'm still trying to figure out how that game devolved so quickly in the second half, but it's the New York Jets. They find ways to win football games. They find ways to lose football games that you just defy logic on a very regular basis. And this game was lost on that 4th and 4 decision, whether it was a terrible play call by Todd Downing or if Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams went rogue. I don't know what happened, but that decision to go for a fade route with the entire middle of the field available to you, it wasn't a 4th and goal situation. You had the entire field available to you, and that's the decision you make. Man, that was brutal.
Yeah, it was. I mean, honestly, how do you not, when they come out with that 99-yard drive, they're dominating time of possession? I'm watching that game and thinking, I think they're going to find a way to win this thing. Like most teams, I would be 100% sure they're going to win this thing. With the Jets, it's like they're going to make it interesting, but I think they're going to win this football game. And then it just all of a sudden you look up and you're like, they haven't scored a touchdown in like 40 minutes of football of play.
Yeah, they don't punt, and yet they can't score 10 points. The first time in the last 25 years that a team's done that. It's just every little thing that could go wrong for the New York Jets went wrong yesterday, and it was weird because that was different than the other games that we've seen. The other games that we've seen is they've had a chance late and they haven't come through. This was a game that it's 9-6 at halftime, and you're like, it should be 29-6 at halftime. The second half starts, and they drive down the field, and you're like, man, they're just going to go right down the field, score a touchdown, and it ends in a 4th and 4 that you don't convert, and the game's over at that point. The next two drives for the Rams are scoring drives, and then you're not able to muster anything else in the game. Rodgers fumbles on just holding the ball too long. The offensive line was great yesterday, opening up holes for Brees, giving him all sorts of time to make throws down the field. He only looked basically to Davante Adams and Tyler Conklin. And I think what was the frustrating takeaway for me is the first drive of the game. Look back at the first drive of the game. And I haven't looked at the All-22 yet. I don't know if it's out. It wasn't out last night when I looked. But they moved down the field, and it was everybody. It was, we're opening up holes for Brees in the run game. It's, we're getting Davante Adams involved. It's, oh, there's Garrett Wilson for a couple catches. Oh, there's Tyler Conklin. It was the offense the way it was supposed to operate. Good offensive line protection, being able to run the football, and they were slow. And I don't mean that in a negative way. They were methodical. There was a plan. Their script to start the game was excellent. That's a credit for Todd Downing and for Aaron Rodgers. And it just felt like, why can't you just do that for 4 quarters? And I don't know.
Spread it around.
Right.
Change it up.
You have talent. Tyler Conklin, Garrett Wilson, Davante Adams, Brees Hall.
Is he on the Jets?
Listen,
I'm not familiar with that guy.
Do you remember? You remember last year I had to take going into the offseason that he was going to request a trade. I was just a year off. I was a year off in my prediction. He is not going to be on the 2025 New York Jets. It's not happening.
I don't know when you tuned in, Chris. I said I've been saying it for over a year too. Just watching him in the pressers, I'm like, this guy's absolutely miserable. I see a lot of Jets fans, and maybe it's just copium, denial, whatever you want to call it. But Jets fans are just like, Jets have control, pay him his money, he's not going anywhere. I'm like, this guy looks miserable, and it ain't about the money. It's about the losing. And what can you do? You convinced him you were going to win with Zach Wilson. You convinced him you were going to win with Aaron Rodgers. Is he going to buy it a third time when you say, hey, we're really going to win with Aaron Rodgers this time if he comes back? Or with this rookie we brought in, or with this journeyman free agent? I don't think you're going to convince him you're going to win football games. And I think he's going to want out. And I think people who believe you just throw some money at the problem and he'll be okay, I'm not seeing that. I think he wants to win. And no matter where and this is what I've said, because a few people have told me that, we'll just pay him. Wherever he plays, he's going to get paid. Whether the Chiefs pay him, or the Ravens pay him, or the Titans pay him, getting paid isn't a concern. That's going to happen no matter what. It's the winning that he doesn't know it's going to happen.
And what's unique to this situation with Garrett is this is totally justified. I have zero issue with Garrett being as frustrated as he is. You should not be running an offense that only targets him 3 times through the first 3 quarters of the football game. He's too talented of a player. You got to figure it out. Whether that's Aaron, whether it's Todd, whoever, you've got to figure it out. You brought Davante Adams here to be a partner to Garrett Wilson, not to shun Garrett Wilson completely out of the offense. And that's where we've gotten to this. I have two comments that were in the chat that I need to address.
Well, there's one here I was going to bring up so we could both address it.
Yeah. This, Mark, I'm not trolling you. I'm not trying to go into a back and forth with you. I'm legitimately curious. What do you think the position of this podcast was about defending the front office? Because this podcast in particular, I think, has been pretty objective in the good and bad. Because you can't tell me that everything that Joe Douglas did was terrible, and you can't tell me that everything Joe Douglas did was great. You can't. Neither of those things are true. There's some good, there's some bad, and there's a lot that's in the middle that isn't really on the front office at all. And if you want to have that conversation, we can have that honest, intellectual conversation. But to say that we were defending the front office, I don't think any of the 3 of us did that on this show, ever. We, at times, were like, you're being too critical, and this move isn't as bad as people think it is. But to say that we were like, oh, Joe Douglas, top 5 general manager, can't get rid of him, got to keep him. Oh, what are you doing? That never happened.
I think you and I, Chris, along with my good friend Scott Mason at Play Like a Jet, I'm not saying we were the only 3 people on the planet, but we were the only 3 people I'm aware of who were like, they're blowing this Aaron Rodgers trade. They gave up too much. This is an older quarterback with an injury risk, and you're giving up all of these assets to get him. It should have been the Favre deal. It should have been like a 3 and a 5 with a potential 1 or whatever based on incentives. I said it the day of the trade. I said to Dylan, fine, I'm happy they got Aaron Rodgers, but I'm not happy with how they got there. Joe Douglas got fleeced. Joe Douglas caved. It's funny. I said it recently, and I had this thought again yesterday, Chris. It's weird that because I defended the reason I defend Joe Douglas as often as I do is because, as you said, Chris, there was good and there was bad with Joe Douglas, but the people that don't like him will not acknowledge any of the good. And people do this with every GM, with every team. If they don't like the GM, every good move was super obvious, so he gets no credit. Oh, so what, he took Sauce Gardner? Anyone could have done that. So what, he took anyone? Everyone knew AVT was going to be good. Everyone knew Breece Hall was going to be good. Right? Did everyone know Jamie Sherwood was going to be this good? Did everyone know that Michael Carter II was going to be this good? Like, there's good and bad with Joe Douglas. I lose my mind when you get the people who don't want to give any credit for the good and they only want to point out the bad. So that's why I get more if, as you said, adult conversation, you want to talk about the good. Look, if anybody is pissed off and wanted Joe Douglas gone, it should have been me. Because each of the last 2 years, how weird is this? The two guys I said who were the slam dunk, home run, obvious first-round picks, both went over 1,000 yards yesterday in Jackson Smith-Njigba and Brock Bowers. Now, look, Will McDonald, great pick. And I said at the time, JSN is the pick, but Will McDonald's still going to be good. It wasn't like, I got a lot of that, this year. Oh, Glenn, you were the guy that said they shouldn't have taken Will McDonald. Don't you feel stupid? No, I said they shouldn't have taken Will McDonald based on what they needed. This is, again, when you thought Huff was going to be around, when you didn't know JJ was going to get hurt. And I said, but Will McDonald will still be good. I wanted Bowers, but I still said Olu Fashanu was going to be good.
Right.
So
it's
Mark,
it's selective hearing.
Yeah, as far as can this, am I willing to admit they did some things wrong? I've been saying all along they've done things wrong, but I've defended what they've done right. And the people who hate on Joe Douglas don't want to hear defending the right that he did. And at this point, even the wrong, Chris, we don't know what came. This team is such a disaster. We don't know who's making what decisions. What quotes. And actually, I do want to ask you about that, Chris, because I don't think we had you on with the when we talked about the latest, the penultimate previous athletic story. This athletic story, the piece with Brick. Let's have your thoughts on that real quick. It's old news now, but I didn't hear your take on it. And Joe Douglas supposedly saying, I'm answering to a teenager. I don't think, and I've joked about it, right? I don't think Brick Johnson was running the team. But as the team acknowledged, and this is what killed the people who love saying that Diana Rossini and Zach Rosenblatt make stuff up. What killed that narrative was the Jets coming out and acknowledging, yes, sometimes we discuss Madden grades when we're talking about player acquisition. So that's a thing. So what are your but with that being said, with Brick being involved in any way is wrong. That's the other piece of it. Oh, he's only doing this. You know what he should be doing? Nothing. He's a 17-year-old kid. Leave it to the football people. So what are your thoughts on that? And how do you view the Joe Douglas era now? Because we all laughed and joked and said after the Aaron Rodgers deal, before the Athletic reported it, we're like, oh, it's like Joe's not even in charge. The last 7 guys brought in are all Aaron Rodgers guys. Who's making the decisions? So at what point, when we look at this regime, did Joe Douglas pick Olu Fashanu? I don't know. I know he didn't sign the 7 guys a few months earlier. So when did he lose control?
So I'll try to keep my thoughts on the story itself brief because I know you guys talked about it at length and it's somewhat of old news at this point. But as you mentioned, I haven't gotten a chance to weigh in here on the show. I'm not surprised by anything I read in the story because to be surprised by something that Woody Johnson would do that would ruin the Jets as an organization shouldn't surprise anybody. Whether or not you could predict the specifics of Madden ratings or kids giving out game balls in the locker room, you might not have been able to point to the specifics, but nothing is surprising when it comes to Woody Johnson's tenure as owner of the New York Jets. But do you remember the last story that came out, Glenn? And I made the point that multiple days went by and you didn't hear a peep from Woody Johnson. That he didn't say anything.
I think, just like I'm doing now, I cut you off mid-sentence because I knew exactly what you were about to say. And I opened my show the other day by saying, like, crickets, where are the denials? Where are the public refutations? There are none.
And then do yourself a favor, because this time the Jets actually gave a response. They gave a comment via a spokesperson. But now I want you to take what I said, the last athletic story, and take it a step further. Look at what the Jets, because The Jets got an opportunity to comment on every single accusation in that story. So do yourself a favor. See which ones they commented on and see which ones they didn't. The ones they commented on are the ones that they were able to, at least on a PR perspective, twist into some type of internal justification of, oh, listen, we didn't veto a trade because of Madden ratings, but Madden ratings come up in the course of conversation. Or, oh, when they were discussing, benching Aaron Rodgers, it was just said in jest. It was just a joke. It was just to be provocative. It wasn't actually intentful by Woody Johnson. Look at what they chose to respond to. And more importantly, look at what they chose not to respond to. Because not speaking is almost as impactful of the words that you actually speak. And so do yourself a favor and go back and look at that story. None of this surprises me anymore when it comes to the New York Jets. Listen, we are going to find out very quickly if these types of stories change the way Woody Johnson operates. We will see if somebody is strong enough, powerful enough in that organization to go to Woody Johnson and say, dude, you got to give it up. Like, you can't operate like this. You have to run this team differently. And then more importantly, we'll see. I know there's a lot of momentum and there's a lot of conversation about Mike Vrabel being one of the leading candidates to be the next head coach of the New York Jets. I have been firmly on the record to say that it is a terrible idea to hire Vrabel as your head coach, not because I worry about Vrabel's coaching ability. That's a separate conversation. That's the reason he left Tennessee. He left Tennessee because he couldn't get along with the GM, because he couldn't get along with ownership, because he wasn't getting what he wanted as a head coach. Do you think that's going to change with Woody Johnson? Now, maybe it does. And if Mike Vrabel ends up being the head coach, maybe he got some concessions that made him feel like he wanted to be here. We'll see. But I have a really tough time believing that the guy who got pushed out of town in Tennessee because he couldn't get along with ownership, and I'm not saying that's Vrabel's fault or not, they butted heads. The A.J. Brown thing, all of the stuff that went on there in Tennessee was a butting heads between coaching, front office, leadership, ownership. What makes you think that that's going to change with the New York Jets? So none of that, nothing in that story surprised me, and we'll see. We will see if this is I believe either way, this is a true turning point for the New York Jets. Either Woody Johnson is going to continue to be the owner that he is being, and we are going to continue to see stories like this, and this team is never going to go anywhere fast, or this is going to be a pivotal moment where Woody Johnson changes the way that he operates. We'll see. What do you think? What do you think the likely outcome is? And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, it's difficult for me because as infuriating as all of this is, I've always said, and maybe I was wrong, but you can't tell me Woody Johnson doesn't want to win. Like, he's done enough to show he wants to win. But then he does stuff like this where it's like, maybe he doesn't. I don't know. I guess I no longer know. I no longer feel confident in saying Woody Johnson wants a championship.
No. I think this is really easy.
I mean, everyone would like one, but how bad? How willing? What are you willing to do?
He wants to win. Two things. He wants to win on his terms, and he's bad at it. Those are the two things. He wants to win. I don't for a second doubt that Woody Johnson wants to win. But he wants to do it on his terms. He wants to be able to say that it was his team. I mean, the man needed to be introduced as Ambassador Johnson on a call a couple of weeks ago when they made the coaching change. He then talked about in that same call that he's been doing this for 25 years. He's the owner of the team. He's not the general manager. He's not making picks. He's not making trades. He wants to be involved. So he wants to do it his way. But more importantly, he's bad at it. You can still want something, right? And be bad at it. And I think that's the case with Woody Johnson.
Yeah, I think it's ugly. Just when you can never say this team hits rock bottom. There's no such thing. They just find new ways to drop lower.
Yeah.
If using Madden ratings to draft players or to evaluate players, not only are you doing it, now it becomes public and you're as big a laughing stock as you can be. Like, God, could it get worse? And it's like, I don't know. You don't even want to ask that question because leave it to them to find a way. Real quick in the chat, New Jersey Lauren, you say, Woody thinks Woody's like Jerry Jones. He thinks he's a football guy. Jerry Jones is a football guy. Jerry Jones
played college football at Arkansas.
Yeah, played at Arkansas. He was a Division I college football player and has one of the better draft track records in the NFL. Just a quick correction there.
probably the one owner that should be allowed to have a say in the football decision because he played the game at an elite Division I level. Like, yeah, if Jerry Jones wants to throw his weight around and make a comment and be general manager / owner, you don't love it.
He's the guy.
But because his track record is kind of hit or miss, but he has the football pedigree to be able to do that. So
yeah, Woody Johnson, Bob Kraft, look, Bob lucked into into Tom Brady, and that's why when people talk about ownership, this owner doesn't know football. How many of these owners know football? Like, really know football? They're rich guys. Look, I don't know as much as an NFL coach does, but if I had the money, you bet your ass I'd buy a team. And I wouldn't care if the fans say Glenn doesn't know football, because Glenn would be the owner and he wouldn't give a damn, just like these guys don't give a damn.
And then Lauren, the other comment I wanted to get into real quick was Lauren followed up and said Chris could find the positives in getting a colonoscopy. And I need to know if that's a compliment, or are you criticizing my approach to talking about this team, Lauren?
Yeah, because I feel like we're both pretty, especially at the moment, we're both pretty negative.
It's not really about finding positives from the game. It's just that, like, there are
colonoscopies are life-saving. There is good in colonoscopies.
They are. I'm not at the age yet where I have to do that on a regular basis. I am barreling towards that. But it's not that I'm trying to find positives from the game yesterday. I'm frustrated because they've shown me. I'll give you a perfect example, right? I am the coach. It's one of the reasons why I haven't been around much lately. I coach my daughter's club softball team, okay? And these are a bunch of 9, 10-year-old girls, some of them playing softball for the first time, or have only been doing it for a couple of months.
And Lauren is joking, but Chris will finish his answer.
Very good. Go ahead. There are moments where the girls show that they know how to do the drill that we're working on. And then there are moments where they forget how to play the game entirely. And I just look at them sometimes. I'm like, girls, you know how to do this. It's the same thing yesterday. I had the Jets offense. I'm like, okay, you know how to do this. You know how to run a competent, modern 2024 NFL offense. And then for whatever reason, you just stop doing that for the rest of the game. So that's where the frustration goes, because it's just like, that's why I point out when it looks good, because it's like, okay, just do more of that. You didn't stumble into that. You didn't accidentally do it. You know how to do it. Just figure it out.
It's the thing that drives me nuts, and you hear about it all the time, right? Or, if you read about the way coaches approach games, Andy Reid is sort of legendary for it. But when you see these opening drives where everyone gets involved and multiple formations, it's a lot of that is like, let's look at how the defense reacts and what their game plan is today. We're gonna run a little bit of everything to see how they respond, and then we'll react to that. But running that little bit of everything worked really well. Mm-hmm. So why not keep running a little bit of everything? And then if the other team slows it down, then say, okay, today they're going with, a heavy sub package, they're giving us a lot of nickel looks. Let's respond to that. Instead of, we've had one really good drive. Now let's sort of dig in and determine what our plan of attack is going to be today. Because, yeah, it felt like they started playing a different game after that opening drive.
Yeah. It was frustrating because I think you go into the game and you don't have Q right in the middle, and you're thinking Kyron Williams is going to go for 320.
And he was chunk after chunk after chunk.
And on the first drive, it was chunk plays, but after that, they kind of settled down. They weren't getting gashed for the entirety of the first half. Kyron did a lot of his damage late in the second half after they needed to make the comeback, and there were little things in yesterday's game that concerned me. You got off to the fast start that we've been critical of this team not getting off to in a really long time on both sides of the ball, right? Defense held to start the game, got the turnover. Tony Adams, hey, Woody, maybe you don't bench players as the owner of the team. Just a suggestion on my part. He comes up with a big interception. You score on your first drive, methodical. Like, you started fast. You started the way that you want to play, because I think the 2024 New York Jets are a momentum-based team. Like, if they, at this point of the season, if they get down early, they're going to fold. It's just going to fold up shop, worry about next week. If they get off to a good start and they see that they can be in the game, you're in for a dogfight for 4 quarters no matter who you play. And so it was so important to get off to that momentum start. Good first drive. Big defensive play with the interception. They almost had another interception because Will McDonald and Hassan Reddick were flying all over the place, deflecting passes in the first quarter of the game, and yet they couldn't they couldn't finish. They couldn't turn other drives into touchdowns, and they let the game be close. And when you do that against a good team like the Rams, that's what happens.
Yeah, we got a comment here we'll address, and then we're gonna fold this up. Like I said, I gotta head down to London, hop in the car and drive down there. Wild Wave, Glenn, your boy Aaron needs to go. I'm not losing Garrett in favor of keeping Rodgers.
I'll let you in on a little secret. You're gonna lose both.
Yeah, that's I can see a route to that. And yeah, I don't know if you just joined us, Wild Wave. Good morning to you too. What country are you in, Wild Wave? Morning. What you're yeah,
No, it's
you're in
still
the
morning.
US.
It's morning for me.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah, it's still morning.
it's nearly evening for me.
Yeah.
Um anyway, back to what I was saying. Yeah, I said earlier, I'm just as happy for Rodgers to leave as I am for him to stay. Um the only path to him staying, as I've said, it would be a massive pay cut and there's not a better option. Which there is a world where that could happen. As I said,
Uh,
if Darnold isn't coming back here, you're not getting Cam Ward, you're not getting Shador Sanders, you're not going to go out and sign Derek Carr. If the Saints let him go.
can
So
we
there is a world where Aaron Rodgers is your best option and a big enough pay cut he comes back. If he walks away, fine. Goodbye. I'm happy
so
with that too.
can we talk about how the Raiders might have absolutely destroyed their chances of getting a quarterback? Like they've ruined them.
Well, I know
What
they're not one anymore. Are they tied with
they're
someone at two?
they're six. Now they're tied with a bunch of teams for the second pick, but based on the tiebreakers, they're sixth.
Wow. I hadn't looked at Tankathon this morning.
So this is
Wow.
you know what? You know what, Glenn? Lauren, you say I'm sometimes too positive. Here's some positive for you. Yesterday worked out pretty well for the New York Jets. You lose the football game. You're still in the top 10. But the Raiders fell out of the number 2 spot. They also fell out of the number 3 spot. So let's just I'm wearing my Senior Bowl hat today. Jim Nagy got interviewed as the for the Jets GM job. Okay, we can go down this path. Here's what we do on this show on a pretty regular basis. The Giants are taking Shador Sanders number 1. I don't think there's a world where he's not the number 1 pick. He's throwing passes in the streets to Malik Neighbors. They're picking him number 1. They are picking him number 1. So that means Cam Ward's up for grabs. New England's not taking him at number 2. Jacksonville's not taking him at number 3. Tennessee might take him at number 4. So now if you're the New York Jets, you're at 8. It might be sacrilegious to do this. But do you call up New England if this is the way the board sits and say, we'll give you 8 plus something else to move up to number 1? Or is it number 2? And then you could take Cam Ward? So you think the Cam Ward dream is dead. I have told you on numerous occasions in the private DMs that I don't think it's over. It's not over till the fat lady sings. And I'm here to tell you, after what happened this past week, the pathway is open.
I don't think, well, you'd have to see the price. When you're talking about a quarterback, the price always goes up. I'm not giving up. I would rather wait on a quarterback next year than give up multiple 1s, multiple 2s. And I love Cam Ward. I got Cam Ward tweets from when he was at Washington State a couple years ago. But I'm not giving up. Yeah, I'm not giving up this year, next year's 1 and a 2 and a 4. I'm not doing that.
Would you give up 2 1s and Sauce to move up to number 2?
I mean,
now in this instance right now it's the Patriots. So you're giving the Patriots Sauce and 2 1s.
yeah, and I said earlier in the show, I think Sauce is going to be fine. I think he's going to bounce back. The tackling's been much better over the past few weeks.
Well, he got hurt and didn't play the second half of the game yesterday, but
yeah. No, 2 1s and Sauce is too much.
it's not really 2 1s because it's a pick swap. You're
That's
swapping
true. You're only
2 for
losing
8,
the
so
1
It's
1.
an additional 1 and Sauce.
Right. Yeah, I don't know.
I
I honestly, what I think it is, I think it's too early because I think this team will find a way to win another one before.
Right.
Like, who do they have? Buffalo? Is Buffalo their final game or Miami?
I think it's Buffalo Miami is how the Jets.
I'll check right now. Yeah. So yeah, I mean they played Miami close once already. I mean who the hell knows who's going to be playing that week? Miami, are they mathematically in the hunt still?
Miami, I believe, still is in. Yes,
I think they're only a game under 500, so they should be. So yeah, maybe. But I could see them screwing this up and winning another one, winning the final game of the season against Miami. So the conversation's too early. But would I trade up a few spots for Cam Ward? Certainly. Would I trade up 6, 7, 8, 9 spots where you're talking multiple 1s and maybe a player? Probably not. That's where I am with that. Yeah. I don't see a path to a quarterback who is not.
The most important thing that this franchise needs to figure out this offseason is a direction. So with whatever GM they hire, they need to decide, are we running it back with Rodgers or are we not? And I think if they make the decision to not run it back with Rodgers, which, by the way, is the best financial decision, unless he is going to take a massive pay cut, unless he is going to take the option bonus that kicks in at the beginning of the year off the table, Aaron Rodgers is not going to be on the New York Jets in 2025.
He has said he'll consider a pay cut. So if he takes one, I think there's a world where he comes back.
But there's a difference between a pay cut and $30-something million of an option bonus being taken off the table. And so I think ultimately, unless he's going to agree to that because we're not doing this. The new GM who comes in here isn't doing this whole darkness retreat and wait 3 weeks for Rodgers to make his decision. It's going to be simple. That GM's going to take over. He's going to have a conversation with Rodgers. You're going to agree to this, or we're going to move on.
Yeah, that's got to be item number one before the guy even hired.
And so to me, I don't see a world where he's going to give up that much money. And so the only way to make this work is to cut him now. To cut him at the end of the year and spread the cap hit over the 2 years and just take the lumps. And now you have a direction, because now you are deciding, okay, we're not rebuilding. I don't want to say rebuild, but we kind of have to retool here. We're going to reset. We're going to take a year, step back. We might get a bridge quarterback. We might see what we can do in the draft, but we are looking for a long-term answer at quarterback. They then will consider, is a Sam Darnold reunion on the table? Is there a quarterback out there on another team that a team might want to get out of that deal? Could Kyler Murray shake loose in Arizona? We can have the debate on whether or not that's a good decision. I think that would be a disaster in New York, but that a new regime might think that's the approach. Look around the league, see who might become available. Maybe the Vikings decide to bring back Sam Darnold and J.J. McCarthy is available, and you can acquire him for less than what the Vikings actually used to draft him, which was a top 10 draft selection. And so there are different avenues and pathways for them to do this. But the moment they make the decision of what their direction is, they need to go all in. They then need to go all in into that direction. And so for me, I've been very clear on this. Rodgers can't be on the 2025 New York Jets. Can't happen. Cannot happen. I don't care how he plays the next 2 weeks. I don't care how he's played for the last 5 games. Cannot be on the 2025 New York Jets. And then from there, the world is your oyster. You can go bridge. You can draft somebody. You can try to trade for somebody. But you need to pick a specific direction. And for me, that direction is, thanks, Aaron. Appreciate it. We gave it a run. It didn't work. It's not you. It's us. See you later.
All right. I'm just trying to go to London for Christmas, and people keep jumping on the show. And now I'm like, this will be a 15-minute. All right. No, good to have you, Dylan. You guys can stay on when I leave if you got more to say, but I want to hear what you popped on for before I leave.
I was going to say, all I got is about 15 minutes anyway, so I was just going to give my thoughts. I hear you guys talking about Cam Ward, Rodgers. I'm kind of in agreement with Chris. Like, if you can get in range, now that 2, 3, and 4 are occupied by non-quarterback needy teams, you could probably do it. Rodgers, I don't know, man. I'm on the fence. It's so tough. Like, the first drive was great. How do you not love watching that first drive? And then everything else felt selfish. I said it on Dano's show. Shout out Dano. I'm sure you're in the chat here. But I said it on his show Friday night. I'm like, we're probably going to see a selfish Aaron who's going to force it to Davante to get that 500. We saw 499 go to Davante. 500 could have been anybody's, but it went to he tried to get it to Davante. I said you should have ran the ball with Brees one time in the red zone there before half instead of kicking a field goal. But we know the stubbornness of the offense. When they get in the red zone, they're just going to pass the ball. Frustrating, but I still got 2 more games to really know what's up with Rodgers. The injury kind of scared me, but that's kind of every sack at this point that he takes is going to scare everybody. So that's probably more of a negative than a positive.
By the way, real quick, because I went down this rabbit hole. Do you guys know who plays each other this week? I'm in full tank mode. I'm in full tank mode. The Jags and the Titans. The Jags and the Titans play each other this week, 2, 3, and 12 teams. So now, longtime followers of my content know this.
Tighten up, baby.
They know this phrase is coming. The game can end in a tie. It is possible for the game to end in a tie, but somebody has to win the football game, okay? Somebody's more than likely going to win the football game. That means somebody's going to lose the football game. And so one of those 2 teams that's picking 3 or 4 is going to fall to 4 and 12. And right now, the Jets would still be behind those teams based on strength of schedule, but it at least puts another spot in play for the New York Jets at some point to move up the board. And the Giants are starting potentially Tim Boyle against the Colts. So Tim Boyle could do his old team a solid real quick, win a game, open up.
I thought the Giants' game to win was this one against the Falcons.
Did you see who the Raiders have? They might have another win on the
They have the Saints, right? They draw the Saints this week. Yeah, so
Raiders might win again.
And the Bills, and there's a chance. So here's what we need to do. Here's what we need to do as a group here. I'm going to let everybody know. You need to be the biggest Steelers fans in the world on Wednesday. And here's why. Because if the Steelers beat the Chiefs, the 1 seed is still in play for the Bills.
And that's a short week, isn't it?
And they play the Steelers. They played on Saturday. They now play on Wednesday. And so if the Steelers can beat the Chiefs, then the Bills game against the Jets means everything, because then it draws them within 1 game. Then they would play for it all the following Sunday. Mm-hmm. So this is your chance.
Week 17, Carolina has Atlanta, and Carolina's playing well.
Oh yeah, I'm in full tank watch, baby. I'm doing the math. I'm doing the permutations because to let everybody in on a little secret, you don't have to get into the spot. That'd be ideal, right? So that you don't have to trade. But if you get into the spot at number 2, you know that you're getting one of the quarterbacks. All you want is that team at 2 to not be a quarterback needy team. You want New England in that spot. You want Jacksonville in that spot. You want one of those 2 teams in that spot, because then all bets are off. They'll listen, and you can put a deal in front of them that could allow you to move up inside to number 2 and make a pick. The Jets sit at 8 right now. There's a chance they move further up. I think that helps their odds the closer that they are to the spot to make a trade. They don't have to give up as much. But that's where we're at right now. I don't need to see anything from this team. They are going to undergo a reset this offseason. I don't need to see any more from Rodgers. I need you to try to figure out what you're doing with Garrett Wilson. I need that to get solved here over the next couple of weeks. But overall, the direction of this team is ultimately going to be decided when they hire a new GM, when they hire a new head coach. What they do between now and then, truthfully, guys, it's irrelevant. It doesn't mean anything.
Well, I think that's the case anyway. None of it matters, but it's fun to talk about. I have to run. You guys want to stay on, and I'll just log off?
No, we can wrap it up here.
We can wrap it up.
Glenn, let me let everyone know a little secret. I'm technically at the day job right now, and I've got the door closed, so let me get back to work here before I get in trouble.
Good man. Look, where do you think I am when I watch 90% of my college football?
Yeah, at the day job.
Am I all 22s?
Yep.
Yeah.
Night shift has its benefits. All right. Have a good one, fellas. Glad you could hop on. Impromptu show. Let's answer Wild Wave before we go. Malachi Corley, what's going on? Bad pick, bad coaches, what's going on?
Future coaching. Baltimore Raven, Malachi Corley.
No. It's just a coaching thing. It's the coaching thing. How do you not use your best players? But it's the microcosm of the whole season. They don't use Brees in the right spots, Braylon in the right spots, Garrett in the right spots. Why would they use Corley in the right spots? So, get a competent coach, and a lot of this stuff fixes itself out.
I would love that. Future Dylan. Baltimore Raven, Malachi Corley.
Quite possible. Have a good one, fellas. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Thanks for jumping in the chat. We'll catch you soon. Have a great
holidays,
Christmas, everybody.